might know EA for some of its most popular titles like Titanfall, Battlefield, the Sims franchise, the FIFA series, and of course we have to mention it, Apex Legends. Or you might know them for being voted America's worst company. Twice.
How did we, Kronk?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
EA is not well loved by many in the gaming community. But what happened? Where did EA start and how did they turn into being the most hated company? We're going to take a deep dive into the history of EA, how it started, and what happened. EA, also known as Electronic Arts, was founded by Trip Hawkins. Trip Hawkins was working for Apple Computers when he decided he wanted to start his own company.
Isn't it great? It's my birthday gift to me.
He left them to start a company he originally wanted to call Amazing Softwares. But thankfully, it was universally disliked by everybody in the company. But Tripp had this idea in his head that he wanted his company to look at games as a form of art, as creating software as an art form, as developers as artists, even to the point of calling developers software artists. Due to this art idea that he liked, some of the names that were thrown around was soft art, but this one sounded too similar to software art, so they couldn't do it. And then for some reason, Tripp really liked the word electronic. They thought electronic artists and electronic arts. And they decided to set on electronic arts because not only were the developers artists, but the company as a whole. So they set on the name Electronic Arts. In the beginning, EA was a small company. They would hire outside sources to help. They would hire freelancers, and they would basically just pick and choose which ideas from the freelancers that they liked. In May of 1983, EA released their first shipment of games. Some of these games were Hard Hat Mac, Archon, The Light and Dark, and The Worms. From the beginning of the company up until around 1987, so 1983 to 1987, all of the games were developed by external individuals or groups. And in 1987, they finally released their own game, Skate or Die. It was the first internally developed game that EA ever released. And around the same time in 1987 was when EA started what I like to call their doom of destruction, where they decided to start buying other companies. Now, one thing to note that we'll get into deeper is the majority of the companies that EA bought either no longer exists or has completely merged in with EA.
Hate your hair. Not likely. Yikes, yikes, yikes. And let me guess, you have a great personality.
Their first victim was a company called Batteries Included that was founded in 1978, originally as a calculator and personal computer retail store. They got the name because all the stuff that they sold didn't normally have batteries included, and so they would include the batteries. And they decided to keep the name Batteries Included. They started developing their own computer software that turned into a multi-million, multifaceted company. But when EA bought them in 1987, they canceled most of the upcoming projects that had been planned, and this company has either been completely absorbed or it just doesn't exist anymore. We're not really sure exactly what happened. There's not much evidence. This was so long ago. There isn't much on the internet. I tried to look, and I couldn't find anything. This company no longer exists, so either EA completely ruined them or completely absorbed them. And then in 1988, the first Madden Series was developed. And I feel like the Madden Series could be a whole video of its own. It essentially started the idea of creating like brand deals with sports that prevent any other gaming company from being able to do the same thing. In 1990, EA began producing games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. But one thing about the Nintendo Entertainment System is this was the start of the consoles. And Tripp had this idea that he wanted to start his own. Due to this, in 1991, Tripp stepped down and founded a new company called 3DO that developed the 3DO Interactive Multiplayer, which was at the time the most powerful console. But it was extremely more expensive. Around that time, the average consoles was around $100, whereas Tripp's console, the 3DO, was around $700. So due to this, the sales were extremely low, and Sony PlayStation was released in 1995. And EA, despite the fact that the founder of 3DO was Tripp, the guy who founded EA decided to stop supporting 3DO so that they could instead shift their focus towards PlayStation. At the same time, Nintendo was a competitor to PlayStation, but EA decided that they weren't going to work with Nintendo anymore because Nintendo wanted exclusive titles. And EA was well aware that if they could make as many games available on as many platforms as possible, that means profit. More people that can buy your game, more money you're gonna make. It makes sense. And I'm not sure around when EA started making games for Nintendo again. I tried to find an exact date, but in my 5-minute Google search, I couldn't find it, and I don't care enough. Another thing that happened in 1991 was EA decided to buy Distinctive Softwares, which EA turned into EA Canada, which is now known as EA Vancouver. This is where they started EA's sports branded games. EA, like I mentioned earlier, would buy exclusive licenses so they could use real-life athletes in their games, and because of these, other gaming companies could not do the same thing. Their whole idea behind this was whoever's playing the game is more likely to play a game if they get to be their role model. And I mean, it must have worked because these type of games are still around today. In 1992, they bought Origin Systems. When they bought this company, they rushed the production of the Ultima games. And because of this, the game fell unfinished. It was just not a good game, so the sales were super low. And EA decided to just discontinue the franchise.
It is no concern of mine whether your family has... What was it again?
Food?
Ha! You really should have thought of that before you became peasants.
And in 2004, they shut down Origin Systems. I feel like this is the first point where you can see where they just did not care. EA sees games as profit, not games as art at this point. At least that's how I see it. They bought a company with potential that had a big franchise that a lot of people liked. And instead of taking the time to make the next game that they were working on good, they rushed it, they ruined it, and just threw it out the window when it didn't work out. And I can make a whole video about all of the companies that EA ruined. And between 1987, when they bought their first company, and 2021, EA bought around 47 companies, and nearly half of those, if not more, some of the data is really hard to find, are no longer around.
Does he... A little to the left.
They are great at just buying a company and killing it. They've killed so many small companies that I don't know who's in charge of making those decisions. I feel like after the first 5 companies they'd killed, they'd say, oh, we're not doing something right, maybe we should reconsider. But instead they just buy. Oh, we ruined these gaming companies, we ruined these software companies, we ruined these franchises for people because we just want profit, rather than caring about the actual product. In 2006, EA had a lawsuit against them for their work conditions. The lawsuit alleged that employees in EA California had to work more than 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week, clocking in on weekends, occasionally working holidays without compensation. So basically, they weren't paying you for overtime and they weren't paying you for holidays, which is pretty fucked up. And then if we jump forward a little bit, in 2009, in FIFA 9, they allowed players to buy packs with currency earned from playing the game or using real money. But we can't put the blame on EA for microtransactions. They were not the company that started this. I feel like they've decided to milk the fuck out of it since they started using it.
Cha, who do you think you were talking to?
But the company responsible for being the first one to put microtransactions in a game was Bethesda Studios. The game in question was Elder Scrolls Oblivion. But one thing that did come from this was when EA released Star Wars Battlefront. There was a ton of controversy going around because it was essentially gambling. It promoted child gambling. And this is something that obviously is illegal. Child gambling is illegal. The way EA decided to deal with all of this controversy was make so that kids would have child accounts that wouldn't allow them to play online. And I don't know about you, but there are a lot of people, a lot of kids, who will lie about their age to be able to play, watch, or do something they're probably not supposed to do, probably shouldn't do, but they're gonna do it anyways. In 2018, we had the economic crisis, and due to this, EA in February 2009 cut off approximately 11% of its workforce, which equals to 1,100 jobs. They also closed 12 of their facilities and even stated that their poor performance in the fourth quarter of 2008 wasn't just due to the economy. It was also due to the fact that they did not release any blockbuster titles in the quarter. EA, in the last quarter of 2008, lost $641 million.
Uh-oh.
And then to make matters even worse, in November of 2009, EA laid off approximately 17% of their workforce, which equaled to around 1,500 employees. This layoff shut down many popular communities, such as Battlefield News and the EA community team. These layoffs also led to the shutdown of Pandemic Studios. In 2011, EA introduced Origin. And up until 2019, EA would only release their PC games on Origin. You could only buy them on Origin. And in 2019, they made it so that you could buy them on other platforms such as Steam. There's so much more that we could talk about with EA, but one thing that I find very funny is in 2012 and 2013, EA was voted the worst company in America. And EA actually responded to this, and it's still on their website. So let's look at it. They titled it, "We Can Do Better." The tallest trees catch the most wind. That's an expression I frequently use when asked to defend EA's place in the gaming industry. And it comes to mind again this week as we get deeper into the brackets of an annual web poll to name the worst company in America. This is the same poll that last year judged us as worse than companies responsible for the biggest oil spills in history, the mortgage crisis, and bank bailouts that cost millions of taxpayer dollars.
I'm in danger!
Are we really the worst company in America? I'll be the first to admit that we've made plenty of mistakes. This includes server shutdowns too early, games that didn't meet expectations, missteps in new pricing models, and most recently, severely fumbling the launch of SimCities. We owe gamers better performance than this. Some of these complaints are 100% legitimate. Like all large companies, we are not perfect, but others just don't hold water. Many continue to claim that the always-on function in SimCities is a DRM scheme. It's not. People still want to argue about that. We can't be any clearer. It's not. Period. They used that phrasing in 2013. Period. Some claim there's no room for Origin as a competitor to Steam. 45 million registered users are proving that wrong. How's that doing for you now in 2024? Some people think that free-to-play games and microtransactions are a pox on games. Tens of millions more are playing and loving those games. We love the game, doesn't mean we love the microtransactions. We've seen mailing lists that direct people to vote for EA because they disagree with the choice of the cover athlete on Madden FNL. Yes, really. ... In the past year, we have received thousands of emails and postcards protesting against EA for allowing players to create LGBT characters in our game. This week, we're seeing posts on conservative websites urging people to protest our LGBT policy for voting EA the worst company in America. The last one is particularly telling. If that's what makes us the worst company, bring it on, because we're not caving on that. We're committed to fixing our mistakes. I don't think they did. Over the last 3 weeks, 900,000 SimCity players took us up on the free game offer for their troubles. We owed them that. We're constantly listening to feedbacks from our players. Are you? Are you though? Through our customer experience group, Twitter, this blog, and other sites. The feedback is vital and impacts the decisions we make. I expect the debate will not include a lot of comments under this post, but here's the truth. Each year, EA interacts with more than 350 million gamers. Origin is breaking records for revenue and users. The Simpsons Tapped Out and Real Racing 3 are at the top of the mobile charts. Battleground 3 and FIFA are stunning achievements with tens of millions of players, and SimCity is being enjoyed by millions of passionate fans all over the world. Every day, millions of people across the globe play and love our games, literally hundreds of millions more than will vote in this contest. So here's my response to this poll. We can do better, we will do better, but I am damn proud of this company, the people around the globe who work at EA, the game we create, and the people that play them. The tallest tree catches the most wind, and EA will remain proud and unbowed. It's really funny reading this 11 years after they uploaded it. Because some of the things that they say on here is still to this day not any better. And in some senses, it could potentially be worse. Listening to feedback, when, where, who is she? You could say, oh, EA recently listened to us about the whole Apex Battle Pass, that they changed one tiny thing about it and got everyone off their back. Did they really listen to the community?
Don't worry, Your Highness, I gotcha. You're safe now.
There's just a lot that EA said in this post that they admitted to and that they would fix, that if they could probably release this today with a couple different titles in there and leave out the Origin stuff, and people would be like, this is relevant. They didn't upload this 11 years ago. This stuff still makes sense today. I guess what it really comes down to is EA is going to continue to get away with everything that they do because, quite frankly, we enable them to. We enjoy the games, and so we put up with microtransactions, unfinished games, and many, many other things.
No! You threw off my groove!
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
And I don't really think that there's anything that's going to change that. I wish there was, but as someone who has played EA games before, most of the time, we just want to have fun. We just put up with it. It's just a game. If you want me to go deeper into EA or focus on the companies that they ruined or games that they've had that have majorly flopped, let me know. There's just so much information on EA that I couldn't fit it all into one video. So if you think that would be interesting, comment it down below and I will make another video for you guys. But thanks for watching this. Sorry it took me so long. I was moving, but we're in the new place now. And I will see you guys later. Bye.